order and ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the roll, please.
Belkey.
Here.
Belzak.
Here.
Clistic.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Marquez.
Here.
McIver. Shower.
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
We have a quorum. The next item is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask questions, comments, or make announcements of a general nature to the City Council. This is something we've added years ago in order to allow anyone in the audience to speak to the council on any issue that they would like to, so that they don't have to stick around the whole meeting. Do you want to come up to the microphone, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
My name is Greg Calton, C-A-U-L-T-O-N, former Darien ZBA chairman of 10 years and alderman for part of one term. Carmen Soldato's unexpired term when he was elected mayor. At any rate, currently residing in Brook Ridge, right across the street. Wish it were Darien. It's not quite. I'll work on that. Also still own property at Waterfall Glen in Mr. Marquez's ward. And I just wanted to say thank you, folks. You're doing a fine job. I watch you on TV every week. And it's good to be back. So carry on.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you. Does anyone else in the audience want to address the council? Please come forward.
My name is Mary Ann Miserandino. I live on Sawyer Road. I am very tired of watching children almost get hit on 79th Street because there are no sidewalks adjoining Cass Avenue. There are people out there walking with children. There are dogs, people walking dogs, people on bikes, children waiting for school buses. They're going to get hit. Someone's going to get...
Mary Ann, where are these sidewalks missing?
From the end of Farmingdale Terrace to Cass Avenue on 79th Street.
Oh, that's the subdivision that has no sidewalks.
No sidewalks on
okay.
either side.
Okay.
There's plenty of room for them. If a couple of people want to lose a tree, they don't have to rake the leaves, but there should be sidewalks at least there. Because the kids are standing out in the middle of the street waiting for buses.
Yeah. We've run into that situation in a number of subdivisions that we inherited as part of the city of Darien. Marion Hills is another one I'm thinking of right now. And we've had residents address that issue of sidewalks. The problem is we would have to assess the residents that live in that area to put the sidewalks in. So I think that would be something that we'd have to discuss as a council if we want to go that route.
There are already fire hydrants far enough back that you've got room for sidewalks to go through there, you know. So, thank you.
Dan, did I misspeak on that? That would be the case? We would have to, or Brian, would you know?
Yeah, that would be by council policy. There, in the past, we've had some residents that have come in and they wanted sidewalks in their neighborhood, and not everybody wants sidewalks. Some people and residents like that rural look, but one of the things that the council had talked about then is to invest new infrastructure in a neighborhood, that it would be through a special service area of some type, you know, or special service area.
That would be an assessment on the residents that live in that area.
Yeah. Now, there's also a number of different areas that we've looked at. I think Dan has looked at it with the schools that are considered a school route, and I think we looked for grants, Dan.
We did. It was Safe Routes to School. Probably 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, that grant has gone away, and we were not awarded any part of that grant. We applied for several of them throughout Darien. 79th Street was one of them.
So again, just so I'm clear, as a policy, the council had talked about that in the past, but it's not a legal requirement. If the city felt, hey, we need to put a sidewalk there for X reasons, the city has the ability, but it really hasn't been the approach not to have those particular residents benefiting from that sidewalk. Like in subdivision that have sidewalks now, the developers paid for those and in turn passed that cost on to the residents as they buy the homes. So that's why, you know, the council at the time had talked about, about the payment for that.
I'm trying to think, Marion, what you're addressing, it's really not the school children. I mean, this is just for any pedestrian walking in that area, because there's no school right there.
No, but the
Yeah.
District 61 buses go through there and pick up gobs of kids. I mean, there are 7, 8 kids standing on one corner every morning, because I'm out early, so I see them all standing there, and the buses go through, they pick up the kids, and then they turn the corner and go, but the kids got no place to stand except out in the street to
Yeah.
wait for the buses.
Yeah.
They don't wanna, they've been told by their parents not to stand on people's lawns, so there's no place for them to stand except out in the street. And I'm sorry, but the kids today are all plugged in with their ears and everything else. They're not even hearing the cars coming down the street. And there are people going through there that are doing more than the 25 miles an hour that they should be doing.
Well, we can throw this to the Municipal Services Committee and get their assessment of the issue and see what they feel, what direction we feel we want to go.
I have jogged past the area and there isn't any sidewalk, and I think halfway through there I have to jump onto the sidewalk. So yeah, even at night when I jog, I have to be careful that there isn't any sidewalk in that one area. So, and before the first stop sign, I think it was from Nantucket, you got some area where you can accelerate, maybe get up 35, 40. So I have seen it myself. Some cars go quite quickly in that area. So
Sure, well, yeah, we know that. We know it's our own residents speeding in our subdivisions, unfortunately. Okay, I think we can leave it there then. We'll just leave it with the Municipal Services Committee to even address it.
And I think at that time, if it goes for discussion, we should dig up the plan for sidewalks, because if there's 5 areas that, you know, are similar situation, we should let the council know about all of those.
I agree. All right, if there's no one, yes, sorry, did you want to come up and address the council? Okay.
My name is Mark Guth. My wife and I have property at 914 Ironwood in Darien. It's in the Hinsbrook subdivision. And the subdivision was started one day before the city of Darien was incorporated. Because of that, they have a lot of county regulations. The houses were built and the properties were landscaped to county regulations instead of any type of city regulations. In the subdivision, there are areas which, from the higher level to the lower level, there are drainage swales that used to drain the water from the upper areas into the lower areas and would dry and things would be perfect. However, over 30 years have passed, and during that time, because of human intervention, like people putting fences right at the boundary, with gravity, moving dirt and other objects down into the swells have been filled and are filling. And also you have human intervention where people have re-landscaped the areas so that the water drains right onto the people behind them or to the side of them, but directly to the lower area, so they no longer have any type of marshy area on their property. Because of this, I have suffered several $1,000s worth of flooding, and I have asked the city what we could do. And the city, through Dan, has proposed a project in order to put sewers in and to have the work done. However, only one participant was willing to join in the effort to have it done, and that was me. And with this, I would be paying a considerable amount of money in order to rectify a problem which I should not necessarily have to do if the drainage swale had been kept in effect. And I'm looking for just a little bit more relief through the neighbors or some type of other help. And there has been thought of adding to the Darien code or whatever to help people not only me, but other participants in getting these projects done. Because if I'm the only participant and I'm paying a lot of money, I may not want to do it. If I don't do it, then we have problems with mosquitoes and further erosion to property and property values, and more flooding for various properties, which, once again, reduces property values. And therefore, I would highly recommend that this would be discussed intelligently and that some type of help or something could be done.
Thank you, Mr. Guth. I think that is going to be part of our budget discussion, if I remember correctly, Dan.
That is correct, and just a quick summary.
Thank you, Mr. Guth. Yeah, go ahead.
At our last Municipal Services Committee, Alderman Belke was present at that committee as well. We had talked of on introducing another level of funding, and this is referred to the rear yard drainage projects. The rear yard drainage projects, as it currently works right now, the city will contribute up to $5,000 regardless of the amount of the total project. In this case, there are certain projects out there that are in the $20,000 range, and of that $20,000 range, the Municipal Services Committee was briefly discussing what other types of level of funding should we be looking at. Right now, staff is, Municipal Services sent it back to the staff to further evaluate to see if there is we'll call it a fair share based on a percentage. So we're currently working on that, and we're looking at presenting it at a special meeting prior to the next city council meeting.
Okay. So we are addressing the issue. I don't know if you're aware, but how many years have we been doing the rear yard drainage project? It's been,
It's been at least, since I've been here, almost 11 years.
yeah, I mean, previous to that, we didn't do anything about it. And so I think it was that Alderman Podorowski was the one that first brought up the issue where we started to get involved in dealing with these issues. And you're right, it's years, and sediment develops into those areas, those culverts that existed, those swales that existed, suddenly become, level. Yep. So it's going to be part of our budget discussion. So, Mr. Dan, make sure you invite Mr. Guth to the discussion, so.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Okay, let's move on to the approval of minutes of January 18th. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Belke, seconded by Alderman Shower. Any additions or deletions for the clerk? I can't remember. If there's nothing, then the roll, please.
Belke,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Marquez,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Kenny,
Abstain.
Plistic,
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
The minutes have been approved. Let's move to receiving of communications. Alderman Marquez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Art Donner contacted me Friday and asked me to talk to Dan, and I was in his office today and I forgot to bring this up. But Art asked if there's something we could do to ask Mr. McNaughton to possibly cordon off the water retention area on that property over there by Rolling Knolls. His concern is if the ice melts, if the temperature increases in that pond, or it's now a pond, children could go on there and they could fall through that. And he's concerned that there's nothing that keeps people from walking right onto that property, and I don't know if there's anything we could do or ask Mr. McNaughton to do.
We could reach out to him to determine whether or not he can put some type of safety fence in around the perimeter of the site.
Just
or at least
around
the
that,
ponds.
the one in the front right off of
Right.
Manning Road.
I would have to check what the normal water elevation is, but currently there's a restrictor that's in place that really does not allow much of the water to get through just because of erosion practices and stormwater ordinances, but we'll take a look at that.
Thanks, Dan.
How deep is that detention pond?
I'm not sure what the normal water elevation is compared, right now it's probably about 8 feet.
Okay.
Alderman, are you talking on a during construction or after the project's done?
Well, he's concerned now because nobody's on the property except
Okay.
workers, and he's concerned some kids could be walking
So it's more
down.
during the construction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other communications? Alderman Clistic?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I got some communications with regards to concerns about additional coyotes we've seen in the area, a little increase there that have, people have noticed. You can speak a little bit on that, Brian. I know there's been some information on Darien Connect, but there's still some concerns that the amount of coyotes in the area has increased from where it was previously, so.
You know, it's
Anything-
it's a reoccurring issue. I know Ross Rice, a resident, I think, in your ward,
Correct.
has reached out to us on this issue, and we've learned from the county, and they're the experts. We've had them, the expert in to discuss the issue, and we've learned that the more you take away, the more will come. And so it's just, you know, the degradation of the forest areas around here that takes away their territory, so they come into our territory. So we just ask residents to look at the Forest Preserve website or our website for a connection on that.
We did put information out on the most recent Direct Connect. Now, you know, it's mating season for coyotes. You'll start seeing more of them, you know, over the next couple of months. There are things you need to be aware of, primarily, you know, with small pets, small dogs. They'll, you know, we've had in Darien and all over the country, they will attack and kill small dogs. They've hopped 4 or 5 foot fences, chain link fences. So there are precautions to take.
Okay.
And they're territorial. I mean, they're going after the other animals, the small animals, because the coyotes consider them a threat
Okay.
to their territory,
Okay.
as
I-
opposed as food.
Okay, no, absolutely. And I think one of the concerns he had additional that he understood that there are coyotes out there. We're just curious with regards to how many is considered acceptable. For like, for example, 1 square mile, you can have 2 coyotes, and now maybe we're seeing 4 or 5. For example, if there's too many deer in a neighborhood, there'll be a program to eliminate the deer that are out there.
Culling.
So one of the concerns he was just curious, wondering about is there an increase? And I think this is something probably more for DuPage County than it is for the city of Darien. And I'll reach out to DuPage County and ask them, but just, is there an increase in coyote, or is this roughly the population has stayed the same, and that's something the residents
I
were
think
just
Brian mentioned
curious
it's mating season for the coyotes right now, so I think that's
Okay.
why we're seeing so many of them
Okay.
now.
You know, they do talk about coyotes have become more bold over time. You know, and there are people that will throw food out, or the bird feeders, or different things that, you know, are nice to do in terms of the bird feeders, but we always discourage people from
Okay.
putting any food out for the wildlife, because if you put something out, the bigger the animal will come and take it. You know, the coyote will kick away the raccoon and the birds, and they'll go into the backyards. And since this started coming up more and more, we have done a lot of research. We haven't found programs really that I found in any municipalities. What you're, you know, to what you're talking about. I know Wheaton had a trap once on a coyote, and I think they felt that was an aggressive, there was something out of the norm for that coyote. They felt at the time, and they've done it once, but everything we were told, it's all about how to live with the wildlife and the coyotes, and what happens if you try to, you know, manage that population as opposed to the deer population. But again, yeah, the Forest Preserve has you know, experts on staff that would guide us for things like
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Alderman Kenny?
Alderman, thank you, Madam Mayor. I had communications from Fred Wilson and Dan Tischler in the 7200 block of Whittier, thanking our forestry and John Carr and for Homer. They did a really outstanding job this time around of trimming trees. So got, you know, positive feedback on that.
Great, thank you. I'll pass that on.
Alderman Marquez?
One other thing. Yesterday, when I attended the Historical Society Sunday dinner, I was sitting next to Ken Poindexter. Ken is the father of a young lady who's starting the Vintage Confections business on Wilmette. And he wanted me to know that he was extremely happy with the assistance of Dan Gombeck. He said Dan even came over there the other day and lent them some assistance with regard to their exit signs and where to get them and how to install them. And he said if the Fire Protection District, as well as the Health Department Res Cooperative, as the City of Darien and Dan Gombeck, the business would have been up and running by now. But highly complimentary of Dan and his staff.
Thank you. Let's move on to the mayor's report, and there is no mayor's report, so I move on to the city clerk's report.
I have a couple of items, Madam Mayor. The City of Darien offices will be closed on Monday, February 15th, in honor of President's Day. And city council meeting will take place on Tuesday, February the 16th. And meet and greet will also take place on Tuesday, February, with the mayor, sorry about that. On Tuesday, February 16th at 6 PM in the City Hall Conference Room.
Let's move to the city administrator's report.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Let's move to department head information, questions. Do we have a report this evening?
Just have one quick item.
Chief Thomas?
Hello, everyone. We had a nice response by the Darien Police Department on January 28th at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Darien officers responded to 87th and Woodvale Drive to assist Woodridge Police Department on a car burglar.
What was it?
Car burglar.
A burglar, oh.
And Woodridge had given us the suspect description and other pieces of information, and that the person had fled towards the Darien area. A Darien officer observed a subject matching the description of the car burglar, saw him running and hopping a fence in the 3000 block of 87th Street. Short time later, another Darien officer saw a subject matching the description walking in the area of 83rd and Grandview. The officer was able to stop the subject. The subject was transported to Woodridge Police Department and admitted to his involvement in 3 car burglaries. None of the car burglaries occurred in Darien, but it was nice to get that arrest. He was charged with 3 counts of criminal trespass to motor vehicle and 1 count of obstructing justice. Sergeant Walters of the Woodridge Police Department was very complimentary to Darien Police Department. So it was a nice job done. Well done.
Chief, it's not the same guy that we caught doing a lot of the car burglaries in Darien?
No.
Okay. So is this a Darien resident, this
No,
individual?
He says he lives in Justice, Illinois.
Wow, he's a little bit away from home.
Away from home.
Yeah.
Chief, also, and we've talked about this, I know we talked about it Monday, again, the importance of residents looking and calling out. I believe, in this case, that's what really,
It started in
alarmed
Woodridge
everybody, a
with-
resident calling in and noticing that.
Exactly. It started in Woodridge with a resident being very open-minded, open eyes, and making sure that the neighborhood was safe, and called it in. So it's
2
a good
a.m.,
job.
you said 2 a.m. in the
About
morning?
2:15 in the morning,
Yeah,
yep.
wow. Okay.
Good deal.
And I'm sure, a lot of these also, Chief, and we preach this often, but they're really looking for the opportunity of open doors.
Oh, yeah. So much easier when people leave their stuff in the car to help the burglars, and it's so much easier when people leave the car doors open. So a lot of times they'll just walk neighborhoods and, try door, and then they'll find one open, look and see what's inside of it, take whatever's there. People leave their laptops, cell phones, cameras, all kinds of different pieces of equipment left in the car, so.
Yeah,
Happens.
we had video tape that we saw in our own Darien neighborhood. I think we picked it up from one of the residents' cameras that they had on their home, and we were all able to observe the film of the guy walking down the street trying all the
Oh,
cars.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Happens frequently.
A couple summers ago, Chief, resident in my ward had their truck stolen and was found on the other side of town. We're talking to them about the whole thing, and they had the truck unlocked, keys in ignition, and they were surprised that their truck was stolen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chief, are we still getting people who have cameras outside their home registering those cameras with the Darien Police? Are they still coming in and doing that?
I have not seen those. I can check on it. I don't know.
We still have the program available, and we
Program's
do periodically promote it still. So there is it's a ongoing list we keep.
Okay.
Probably haven't worked with Greg on that yet, but yeah, that's still active.
Okay.
That might be one of those that we keep on the Direct Connect on a routine basis. Okay, any other reports?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, our viewing residents at home, and our guests this evening. Back in October, we had spoken about at the budget workshop, we looked at landscaping enhancements on 75th Street. So kind of want to give you a little bit of an update, and this will be up and coming at the budget meeting within the next couple weeks as well. I want to put this is a summary board, and this is basically for the cameras. I'm going to pass around individual poster boards here. The first depiction is of 75th Street, and again, these will be on display after the meeting this evening. The first one I'd like to pass around is for the 75th Street and Plainfield Road enhancements. Now, these enhancements are perennials. They're 40 islands, and all the enhancements are plantings, bushes that will have a vibrant color for approximately 150 to 200 feet, pending on the length of the right-of-way. All these designs were done courtesy of DuPage County through their consultant. And also, what I'm going to pass around here, I'm going to start passing around, and I'll keep on speaking here. So again, if we could, I want to make sure we get a full vision of what they're proposing. Again, that's for Plainfield Road and 75th Street.
And who's picking up the tab on this?
This is going to be, the enhancements are the city of Darien's.
Okay.
First of all, the trees that were taken down by DuPage County for the 75th Street reconstruction project, they had removed approximately 120 of them. They are putting back 127 trees, and that contract is set. Within this contract is the enhancements that I'm presenting this evening.
In addition to the trees they're putting in.
Correct. The second one that I'm about to present is for William Street and Park. Total budget that we're looking at is approximately $100,000 for all of these enhancements. Again, the enhancement include all the intersections at the medians of where the reconstruction project had occurred. They're currently in the process of putting this out to bid within the next 2 weeks. They're looking at having a bid opening early March and awarding the contract in early April. By that time, the city council will have the opportunity to consider whether or not this will be in a project. But meanwhile, I want to get this information out there to see the opportunities that are available to complete this project. The next item I want to pass to you is 75th Street and Adams. Now, again, keep in mind that on an annual basis, there will be maintenance to this. That maintenance will include de-weeding, mulching, and potential watering, depending on what the season is doing. As soon as you're done there, Tom, I'm going to give you the last one, which is the 75th Street and Cass Avenue enhancements. Off that subject, just want to give you a quick update. The street light project for the 75th Street Cass Avenue corridor is scheduled to start March 1st. The Illinois Department of Transportation is in the process of reviewing all the specifications to make sure they're in accordance with the electrical standards for highways. Is there any other questions that I may be able to answer for the City Council this evening?
Dan, the county's going to do the bidding on our behalf?
Correct, and this is also an option.
That was my next question. It will be the option for us whether or not to take it or not.
Correct.
We're just making sure we got the bid going, just in case.
Yes.
Okay.
And there is no irrigation system that's also proposed in here.
And is it an all or nothing? You either do all the enhancements, or you can pick and choose one area and not the other areas?
I'm hoping, I have to double check the contract. I believe we have the opportunity for a pick and choose.
Let's make sure we have that option, okay?
I will double check that
Yeah.
tomorrow. That was the last instructions that I had left with the county about 3-4 weeks ago in the contract. I did not get a chance to look at the latest contract that's ready to go out.
Okay. Any questions for Dan?
Dan, would the plantings be and the trees be in conjunction with the lighting?
Actually, what they're gonna do is, the lighting's gonna go first, and then the planting, so they're gonna basically defer until the lighting project is completed.
Okay.
They wouldn't start when did you say they were going to start the planting?
May.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. They're going to start the lights in March?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alderman Belke, you have a question?
On an unrelated subject, though, but it's a Dan question, for the stormwater management that prior resident brought up. Can you tell the council a little bit about what the plan is? I believe there's another municipal meeting scheduled for the 16th, early.
Correct.
right?
And again, it's basically, just to recap, the municipal services had discussed the different levels of, potential different levels of funding. The first level of funding, or today's level of funding, is basically $5,000 from the city. So in other words, if a $6,000 project is put out there, the residents would put up their $1,000, the city would put up the remainder, which is the $5,000. The $5,000 is basically a cap for the city, regardless of the amount of the project. We now have been asked to look at different pricing structures or participating structures for larger projects. For example, a gentleman that was here this evening, I believe his project was, I'm going to refer to it as a $20,000 range. In this particular case, there's three to four adjacent residents. They really don't have a concern or a problem. So the question becomes, why should they participate? Because they don't have a concern. Meanwhile, the city had surveyed these residents, asking them for their joint participation. The answers came back, obviously, no. Now, this gentleman would basically have a $15,000 expense with the city providing the $5,000. And again, we have another couple, probably two more in the inventory, if you want to say, of these types of situations. They are unique, and they are larger dollars. So what the municipal services discussed a couple weeks ago was to determine if there's an opportunity to look at it across the board with a percentage rate. So we're currently analyzing that percentage rate. It just doesn't seem to be working out, but we're going to have a couple different options to present back to the committee, whether it's multi-levels, percentages, cutoff points, whatever the case is.
Brian, would you?
In addition to that, excuse me, I know, Dan, we talked, the fact that if the formulas get changed doesn't necessarily equate to more money for the projects, but I think it's just how it's sliced up. But I think the municipal services at this point is recommending also additional funds for the projects.
Correct. And what we've introduced into the budget, I'll refer to it as a place marker at this point, is an additional $42,000, I believe it is.
Yeah.
$42,000 for the projects that we have, I'll call it the account that it's in today, and additional $42,000, again, for a place marker for these larger projects.
Which is something that the council may not see, because as I put the full budget together, not everything that, we talk about is in there. And this particular item, I've left at what we had last year. So if the council wants to change the formula, there's no impact. But if the council wants to also add additional money towards that project, then that would be an impact.
We were looking at it as an equity issue. Alderman Belzak picked up on that last week, and we told Dan to go back and take a look at percentages. So for instance, if you have a $6,000 project and the city picks up $5,000, your city's basically picking up 80-something% of your project, whereas if it's a $15,000 project and the city pays $5,000, the percentages are really off. And we didn't want to, it's really difficult because if you look at the spreadsheet, it's real hard to come up with something that is equitable yet doesn't cost the city thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, the equity comes in the fact that the residents that you've identified as being part of the group that should contribute, they don't realize whatever was going on their property is draining onto this gentleman's property. So they are the cause of what's happening on this property. And how do we get that across to those residents?
We've tried over the years, and in some of the cases, residents do tend to cooperate. The best way is for the residents that have a problem to confront in an amicable way with their neighbors and show them, what's the disparity, what is it really doing? Instead of big government coming in here, you have to do this. It's worked in the past. I've seen, situations where there's been some hardships, and a couple residents have kicked in for them. So, the goodness is out there. It's just a matter of the dynamics with the residents. And whenever we have the opportunity to go and meet with the residents and speak with the adjacent residents that are on the fence, whether or not they should contribute, we're out there.
And
I think you could also do a little bit stronger not terminology, but language in the letters that you send out to the residents that really are impacting this other home. You know, that the issues on your property are contributing to their
Sure.
property, their problems, that may encourage them to step up and contribute.
Dan, how about if there are legitimate problems somebody caused, over time, the ditch is filling up or things like that. But if somebody goes and they'll put a flower bed in the right of way, those things we might make somebody change or do differently. Is that correct?
Well, if it's in a right-of-way or even in an easement, a rear yard easement, the answer is yes. Keep in mind, a lot of plats back in the 60s or even earlier, while they were under DuPage County, allows for the planting of trees, bushes, gardens within these easements. By today's standards, when I say today's standards, since the 1980s, those standards are wiped out, but there is some ambiguous language within the easements from the 80s to probably 88. So, but today it's cleaned up, but unfortunately we have all these concerns that have been backed up for 40, 50 years.
When a resident runs into an issue, like this gentleman here tonight, he said
I'm sorry, can you hand Brian that microphone, the mic from Sylvia's? You're breathing. I keep on hearing.
I think you're too close to the microphone, and
trying real hard.
we're listening to you breathe.
Okay, here we go.
I don't know if that will do the job, if you're too close to the microphone.
It happened at our meeting last week, and we had the same cause.
Yeah. Happen at municipal services.
I'll hold my breath.
All right,
Can't-
bunch of meetings now.
We were trying to figure out who was the culprit. I was looking around the dais to see who was too close to their microphone and breathing like that, but, okay. Dan, go ahead. It was distracting you too, huh?
Yes, I kept on hearing. But I'm sorry, last question, Alderman Kenny?
I almost forgot what I was going to say. When the gentleman here talked this evening about, and over the past years, he's had to spend X amount of dollars for the damage that's coming through the water. Is there been any cases where insurance companies have picked up, where they've put claims out on this? Where I'm going with this is maybe if these people's insurance companies, maybe they got some kind of discounts because they have this rear yard drainage program. I'm just thinking outside. I'm just thinking outside the box to give them a reason to put this in that may possibly maybe their premiums go down on insurance. I don't know.
The answer is, well, if his home is flooded, that's one story. Okay, I don't know
Right.
or have that information or access to that information. If water is a nuisance, in this case it's a nuisance, it's a quality of life issue is what it becomes. There are no insurance claims for these types of situations.
That's the issue here. For Mr. Guth, it's just in the easement area, he's got wet grass all the time.
Correct, and
Yeah.
keep him, and with all due respect to Mark, he left, but there's he has to also do some additional grading to help himself as well.
Okay,
But if one isn't done, there's no use in doing the other.
I understand. Okay, if he tries to do something on his property, it's useless unless he has help from upstream.
Correct.
We actually looked at this, and we possibly have 2 to 3 projects out there that could be upwards of $50,000 to repair. And so we really looked at that. I stopped by Dan's office today. We talked about this again today. And I said, maybe we want to set a whole different category for anything $15,000 and above in terms of looking at funding and what percentage the city would pay versus what the owner would pay. We know the owner's going to have some responsibility. But when the city's paying 80% at one level, and if the city is not going to pay 80% of a $52,000 bill.
No, guaranteed. I'm just looking at some kind of incentive for these residents who don't want to get involved, who don't want to help, the cause, because eventually, sometime later down in the future, it may come back and bite them, where they're going to wish they had done something sooner.
We know
Alderman
that.
Kenny, I think you are a prime example of that type of situation, if
Yes,
I'm
I
not
am.
mistaken. Where we had residents where we thought Mr. Kenny was involved with the drainage project. Long story short is there was commitments from certain neighbors, next thing you know, there's no more commitment, and he was stuck holding the bag, if you want to say, in this particular case. But so it's difficult once residents get that piece of paper and it comes time to sign something. Sometimes it's disheartening.
Okay.
I guess the
Treasurer
other
Corr?
question I would have, Dan, depending how this program expands or doesn't expand, wouldn't it be possible almost on an individual basis for me to say, I'm having water issues with my house? None of my neighbors are to blame or anything, but it's gonna cost me $10,000. Would I have the ability to come to the city and say, hey, it's $10,000, now you're gonna contribute 20, 30, 40, whatever percent would be. Now you're opening yourself up to really each individual resident, would be my reading of it.
Well, we basically do that at this point, except our cap is 5,000, and the whole purpose of this is to be able to create a fair share. And again, there's no magical answer.
Yeah, but if you provide, say, $50,000 in the budget, whatever the amount happens to be, but you happen to get, once it's almost a one-on-one basis, and you get 100 residents during the course of that year, now how do you decide who's going to get their share of that $50,000? And how's it going to be, how are you going to decide which project has priority over the others?
Well, currently, there is no backlog. Residents that,
But if you expand it, I can see it very easily if it essentially goes down to a one property having a problem as opposed to a group property, which is right now where the rear yard
Right.
drainage for the most
There-
part are.
There has
haven't
to be a minimal.
We haven't discussed a rating system, so if you get $100,000 in projects, we haven't gone through how you prioritize those yet.
and whether or not we will, because right now the policy is based on a first come, first served basis. And keep in mind, the projects are typically ranging right around averaging about $8,000. So they're really, and there are some of them that have been out there for 11,000, 13,000, but there's been some additional cooperation and participation. Again, it's difficult to answer your question specifically without not having, yes, if it's X amount of dollars, the percentage is this, because it still equates to a same percentage. As the participants go down, the increase goes up to that party.
And Dan, you mentioned this as you were talking, but if somebody calls you and they're having water on their property or a problem, first thing you do go out and is assess the problem. So if a resident's problem is only caused by a back pitch on his own private property, we may not get involved and just let the resident know they have to regrade their property.
Oh, and that's correct, too. We do go out there. There's been several cases where we go out there, well, you don't qualify, and simply you don't qualify. They had a pool, for example, in their yard. The pool has now been taken down, and there's a large depression there. Well, something like that wouldn't qualify. If there's a side yard swale, typically side yard swales don't qualify unless there's a stormwater easement in place. If there isn't a stormwater easement in place, the residents are directed to regrade the properties to pitch either towards a roadway, a ditch, and or a rear yard.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll be seeing this more during, okay, the budget, okay.
Are there any additional comments on the plantings at this point, or no? The landscaping enhancements, I just want to make sure.
Dan, they're beautiful. It's beautiful. Now it comes down to, can we afford to do it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question, where you're showing currently they've paved over it, right? If I remember right, driving past, like, where they're currently located at, where like where you're showing plans?
On Cass
On
Avenue?
Cass Avenue,
No.
correct. Okay, so that
No.
area is not paved in between the.
Where it's paved, that's going to maintain pavement, so it'll actually be on the eastbound and westbound 75th Street in Cass in that particular case.
Dan, just real quick, I've seen ComEd along Plainfield Road at Bailey working on overhead lights. Anything with their project, possibly?
While there's no official news, I can only presume at this point that what ComEd is doing there is for the up-and-coming project.
Okay.
I do know the Illinois Department of Transportation has opened the bids. They have not released the bid information at this point. Again, IDOT has this, through the federal guidelines, have this protocol where bids are not released until they're officially awarded. I'm anticipating within this week sometime, I should be receiving the bid tally. We don't even know what our pricing is for the water main or our portion of it at this point.
Okay.
But the utilities, I can guarantee you that the utility work that's going on currently is in anticipation of that project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the treasurer's report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, I'm requesting council's approval of warrant number 151618 in the amount of $87,719.36 from the listed funds. Payroll for the 2 periods ended January 7th and January 21st in the amount of $528,386.79 for a total to be approved of $616,106.15.
Do you have a motion to approve? Alderman Belzak, seconded by Alderman Shower. Discussion? You know, just remind me, I think it was page 7. I was trying to figure out what all those numbers stood for. Willowbrook Ford, the 2 items at the bottom of page 7, the Willowbrook Ford expenditures for maintenance on vehicles. There's a whole bunch of numbers, and then in parentheses, it was a couple of the police department cars, actually 26 and 31. But what were all the other numbers that were in that?
Those would be invoice numbers. We
Oh,
we pay our
jeez,
bills by
okay.
invoice numbers.
Oh, my goodness, that was way too easy. Okay.
Thank you, Treasurer Corn.
Oh, I thought there was got to be some code there or something. Oh, dear, I never even thought about that one. Any questions for the treasurer? Okay, we need to approve this first. Okay. Then the roll, please.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. The warrant's been approved. Treasurer Corn has the police pension report, committee report.
Yes, as I mentioned last meeting, we did have our police pension fund quarterly meeting last Wednesday, reviewing the 4th quarter performance as well as the calendar year-to-date performance. Our pension and the amount that we contribute is based on our fiscal year, so they don't exactly match, but just to give you an idea of the parameters where they're running, the 4th quarter was rather good for performance. As you know, we have about $24 million in the police pension fund, split equally among 2 different money managers. They each manage about half of it. One of the managers, the 4th quarter return was about approximately 2.6%, and the other about 1.57% just for the quarter, which was outstanding. The bad news is for the year-to-date, the 12 months from January 1st through December 31st, the performance was only a positive 1%, just over 1% for one manager, and actually a deficit of almost 3/4 of a basis point, just less than 1% for the other money manager. So essentially flat in terms of performance on the calendar year basis. This is also prior to what's happened in January. Everybody knows January was not a very good month, with averages being down about 5.5%. Our funds are split about 50-50 between equities and fixed income. So I would anticipate in January, although they didn't want to talk about it, we're probably down to a couple percent for the month of January. So hopefully we'll make a little bit of it up if things come back before April 30th. But at this point,
Who are the 2 money managers?
the money managers, we have MB Financial and Sawyer and Folduto.
All righty. Anything else for the treasurer? And let's move on to standing committee reports. Do any of the chairmen have reports? Alderman Shower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The minutes from our October 5th Administrative Finance meeting were approved at tonight's Admin Finance meeting and submitted to the clerk's office. Our first Committee of the Whole budget meeting will be at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, February 17th in council chambers, with subsequent meetings starting at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, February 23rd, Monday, February 29th, Tuesday, March 8th, and Tuesday, March 15th, if needed. Our next Admin Finance meeting will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, March 7th, 2016, in our upstairs meeting room.
Thank you. Alderman Marquez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last Monday, the Municipal Services Committee approved and submitted the minutes of the January 4th, 2016 meeting. We have a special Municipal Services meeting, as was mentioned earlier, on Tuesday, February 16th. We're looking at a 6:15 starting time for that. And our regular meeting of the Municipal Services Committee is February 22nd at 6:30 here in the council chambers.
Okay, we are missing one. Is there a police committee report at all right now? Okay, all righty.
I have on here that their next scheduled meeting is for Tuesday, February 16th at 6 PM.
Okay, thank
And
you.
you usually meet in the police training room.
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move to questions, comments, and agenda-related from the audience. Anyone in the audience want to address any of the items on the agenda? Then I think all the council members, anyone want to discuss any of the items? We didn't really go into it. All righty, then let's move on to old business, and there being no old business, I'll move right to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda has items A through F. Items A and B have to do with the Darien Dash, which is going to be held on May 15th this year. They're going to be having the 1 mile, 5K, and 10K races on that date. It's a Sunday. And the two motions are to cordon off some of the streets in the Hinsbrook subdivision for the running of the races. Item C is a motion to grant a waiver of the raffle license for the Signature Events group on behalf of People's Resource Center. Item D is a motion to approve an ordinance for the variation of the sign code for Darien Point. Item E is a motion to approve a resolution approving and publishing our updated City of Darien official zoning map. And the last item is a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept a proposal from Reiki Office Interiors for labor, material, and installation to remove and replace the existing carpet at the Darien Historical Society and the City of Darien. Do I have a motion to approve those items? Alderman Marquez, seconded by Alderman Belke. The roll, please.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belke.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 absent.
The items have been approved. Next item is new business, and there being no new business, I'll move right on to questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature. Do any of the aldermen have announcements of any sort? Yes, Alderman Belke?
I guess just our final reminder, almost, for people to sign up for congratulations to Marion Krupika for the Citizen of the Year. Again, the event is Saturday, March 5th, and it starts at 6 o'clock, cocktails, dinner at 7, and it's $30 at Alpine.
And our next city council meeting will be the cake and coffee ceremony honoring Marion here at City Hall. Okay, and anyone in the audience have anything they wanted to address? Okay, all right, so with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn? Alderman Kenny, seconded by Alderman Belke. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Turning the microphones off.
That's Darien Point. I knew I recognized him. But